What's up, Super Saiyans, and welcome back to my channel. If you're brand new to this channel, do me a favor, scroll down a little bit and hit that subscribe button and click that bell. That way you never miss a video and you become part of the Super Saiyan gang, which is one of the greatest groups of people to ever grace the face of the earth. If you're not new to this channel, welcome back. I hope you're doing amazing. Today we're gonna be switching gears a little bit back to the acting thing, you know what I'm saying? Today we're gonna be talking about how I set up for my self-tapes. If you don't know what a self-tape is, that's perfectly fine. A self-tape is basically an audition that you film at home and then you send off to casting directors via email or Dropbox or whatever medium or portal they choose to use. Self-tapes became a lot more popular during the pandemic just because it was easier to, get people to audition without risking the contraction of COVID, As self-tapes have become more popular, there's a certain standard your setup is supposed to kind of be at. And also, I want to say my setup isn't perfect, but it works. It gets the job done. It serves its purpose. I'm going to talk about my setup. I'm going to talk about a setup that I was using before the setup that I have now. Then I'm going to talk about some tips that could, probably help a person who's new to the self-tape world or acting in general. So let's go ahead and get right into my setup first. One of the biggest components of doing a self-tape is the lighting. So I personally use 3 points of light. I use my 2 softbox studio lights as well as my ring light. The ring light I got from Best Buy for like $140, $150. There were less expensive options, but I was like, go big or go home, and got the most expensive one. But it works. It was a good buy. It was a good buy. The 2 studio lights I use came in a set that I got off Amazon. They're adjustable in height, not adjustable in brightness, but it's never really been much of a problem. Lighting is important because casting directors have to be able to see what you look like, and if your lighting is too bright, it might drown out your face, and if it's too dark, they're not gonna know what you look like at all. So lighting is very important. It's very important. But next we'll get into the backdrop. My backdrop consists of a background stand that I got with the set of the studio lights off Amazon. That set will be linked down below, if you want to check it out. I probably got the set of the lights and the backdrop for like $80 total. It also came with some backdrops as well as some clamps to clamp everything in place. I actually don't use the backdrops that came with the stand and the light. I use some curtains just because it's a little bit easier to hang up versus having to clamp everything down when I can just, throw some curtains on that and call it a day. The curtains that I use are blackout curtains. I don't know specifically from where. My mom just kind of had them lying around the house, so she gave them to me to use. So I just chose to use them for self-tape auditions. I also don't know that blackout curtains specifically are the best thing to use for this, but they do work for me. You can get blackout curtains from any retailer that sells home goods, so like a Target, a Walmart, places like that. As far as cameras go, now, yes, I have a camera I can use for self-tapes, which is the camera I'm filming this video on, or a different camera that I was using previous to this one. I don't though. I use my phone because it's a couple more steps to set up a camera versus a phone. Because with the camera, I have to set it up, make sure the framing's all right. I gotta make sure the battery's charged. I gotta make sure there's an SD card in it that's empty. Then once I film the audition, I gotta take the SD card out and I gotta plug it into my computer and extract the footage from the SD card. And that's just a lot more work when I can just set up my phone, press record, and then take the footage off my phone and put it onto my laptop to edit and all that good stuff. Especially because most of the time when I'm filming an audition, I have to film it kind of quick because it's either in between something that I'm doing, or maybe they want it in a couple of hours and I don't have time to do all that extra stuff. So I just use my phone. I have an iPhone 12 Pro. I've also used an iPhone 11. Any smartphone will work for this essentially. It doesn't have to be a super fancy camera or super fancy camera phone or anything of that nature. So now that we've talked about my setup, I'm going to talk about what I was doing before. So what I was doing before is I was using a solid white wall that was just, in my house somewhere, and a single ring light. There's like ring lights you can get for 20 bucks off Amazon. You'll probably get something for 20 bucks at Best Buy or something of that nature. So you don't have to spend $100+ on a light source. I do feel that multiple points of light work best, but if you can get your hands on a good enough ring light, the ring light can work well for those as well. You can also probably look into like the flood lamp looking lights. They're not actually flood lamps, but they're studio lights, but they look like flood lamps, so that's an option as well. In terms of the backdrop colors, you want to have like neutral colors, like maybe a gray or a white. Green and blue work as well. I don't know like specifically why they do. I don't know. I don't know. But all I know is those colors work the best. So if you don't have a solid white wall, you can probably take a blanket or a shower curtain or a regular curtain and just pin it up somewhere and just kind of use it like that. As long as your camera has decent quality and like decent sound, which most, you know, smartphones do, you're good to go. So basic checklist for a self-tape audition: solid backdrop, source of light, camera with good sound. That's pretty much all you need to do a successful self-tape. So if you're just starting out, there's absolutely no need to spend hundreds of dollars on a self-tape setup. So now let's get into some of the tips that I find useful when auditioning from home. For one, dress the part. You want to do your best to dress how the character is described, because when the casting directors are looking at you, they want to see the character. So if you're auditioning for an edgier character and you dress more on the cutesy side, that's probably not going to work, and they're not going to see you in that character. So you want to just do your best to make sure the casting director doesn't have to use their imagination too much when envisioning you in the character. My next tip would be to make sure you have a reader. If you're doing an audition that requires dialogue, like back and forth, you know, you're having a conversation with somebody, you want to make sure you have somebody off camera reading it to you. You can do like the voiceover punch-in type situation if that's what you're into, but it just kind of flows more naturally when you have someone actually doing the scene with you. Another thing when it comes to self-tape auditioning, you don't want to look directly at the camera when you're doing the audition. Like right now, I'm staring directly into the camera lens. You don't want to do that when you're reading for a role. You want to look off to the side, and you don't want to look like too far off to the side, but just maybe like 2 to 3 inches away from the actual camera lens. That way you're not looking directly at the camera, and it gives the illusion that you're having a conversation with someone off camera. I personally always slate directly at the camera, and if you don't know what a slate is like basic information that you say at the beginning or end of your audition, just to give the casting director an idea of who you are and things of that nature. My basic slate normally consists of my first and last name, my height, and where I'm located. Normally when you're sent the audition, the casting director will let you know what they want from you. They'll ask you to say if you're non-union or union. They'll ask you to say if you're vaccinated or non-vaccinated. They'll ask you to say who you're represented by and all that good stuff. So just make sure you're reading the instructions as well. That way you know what you're supposed to be saying. My final tip to you for doing a self-tape audition is to do your best to be off book. It's a lot easier to look like you're reading if you're actually reading from the script. If you memorize it, it gives you an opportunity to kind of get into it a little bit more because you're not constrained to looking at the paper. It'll feel more like you're having a conversation with someone versus, you know, reading a conversation. So, you know, just do your best to be off book. Do your best to memorize the lines. That being said, that pretty much concludes this video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Follow my Instagrams, at me on Snapchat, follow me on TikTok and Twitter and all that good stuff so you know what I'm doing. If you stayed to the end of this video, do me a favor and comment camera down below. That way I know who stays and who didn't, you know what I'm saying? I appreciate you for staying to the end of the video. Make sure you stay tuned for next week's videos and comment anything you want to see me do on my channel down below. That's all that I have for you guys today. I'll catch you at the next video, and don't forget to always be super, period.